Welcome to Fitness Friday today, and it's one of those special Lifestyle Academy kind of teaching sessions for us because Mitch and I happen to be out of sorts today, I guess. We're not in studio, so this is one of those special shows that just is endless with information, and it'll prompt you hopefully to give us a call. This is Fitness Friday, presented to you by Bodez by Tasso & Company, and I'm Tasso from Bodez by Tasso & Company, located in Ormond Beach at 1140 West Granada. And my co-host is Mitch from Love Whole Foods. Mitch.
Hey, how you doing, Tasso? What a great morning.
Good. Tell people where Love's is located and what they do.
Well, you know that our two family businesses have co-evolved. We've got the Ormond Beach Love Whole Foods at 275 Williamson Boulevard, and we've got our new location down near the Pavilion in Port Orange, just off of exit 256, and that's at 1633 Taylor Road, right across from the Westgate Shopping Plaza, just west of I-95.
So if you want to call Bodez Personalized Fitness to start your fitness program as a result of this show, where you're at today, and move it to where you want to be in better health in that, which we're going to talk about a couple themes today that will be really revolutionary from the standpoint of thought process when it comes to exercise and nutrition. Call 672-6464. That's 672-6464. And Mitch, Love Whole Foods, give them the number for that.
Give me or give Mitch Booth a call at 677-5236. Or if you're in the Port Orange, New Smyrna area, the number there is 767-6543.
So today, Mitch, we're going to talk about the things that have brought us together and likeness. Because really, when people think about, first of all, there's some concepts we've got to bust because there's some concepts out there. First off is the concept of fitness centers and exercise. Most people are still calling them gyms because they think about it in the old days when the only people that went to gyms were bodybuilders, right? And then they think about it from the standpoint of it's only about building the muscle and the body and the aesthetics of it. Well, those things have evolved and changed as America has aged and as our food supply has changed. And we wonder, how do we reverse this process of aging that we're seeing, where arthritis and diabetes and that come more into it? Well, at Bodez, we have a synergy about what we do when we take on game plans. The first part of that synergy is that we pay attention to lean body muscle or lean body mass, which is muscle tissue, because it's metabolically active. The second part is we put it in a moderate aerobic exercise. And the third part is we promote great nutrition. And over the last 2.5 to 3 years, that good nutrition has gone more and more to the side of organic and raw. And that's when I approached you because of our good friend Carl Como. And we talked about working together because one of the areas that we could bring most knowledge and most change to the body is through good nutrition. So when we looked at it, you brought forth...
Well, what we did together was whole body. So
that's right.
There's a synergy that's inescapable. And again, you've been sending me your clients, and I've been sending you my clients for
a lot of years.
And
more than we want to tell people.
And finally, we decided, hey, let's bump this up a notch.
So the concept that you brought to the table, which is as part of your mission statement, was love, laugh, and lift. And we're going to talk about that a lot today. Before we do that, though, how's your industry changed? That I think people, when they think of Love Whole Food, they think of, their first thought is to think it's like Vitamin Shop or GNC. It's a vitamin place. But really, your concept that you started with 25 years ago was much different than that. Tell people about your concept, why it's different from, say, going to Walmart or Walgreens or GNC or whatever and buying vitamins or buying a supplement.
As a nutritional educator, my mentors had a basic premise. The body runs on 23 vitamins, 72 rare earth elements, and 18 essential amino acids. That's why we eat. The key is to get those foods that have those nutrient densities at their optimal level, not just adequate to sustain life, but to be optimal and to address everything from the primary brain, mental acuity, to the second brain, which we're going to talk about this afternoon or during this program. The second brain, which dictates the gut, the processing of that food so that you get the nutrients into the bloodstream. And that whole body concept is what we introduced 25 years ago, with the emphasis on organic fruits and vegetables that didn't have any contaminants, no preservatives, no thickeners, no taste enhancers,
No colors.
no artificial colors, no refined sugars, no refined carbohydrates, and also foods that don't have adulterants in it, like antibiotics and artificial hormones.
Right.
And that's where we started. I'm really proud. The mission statement sheet that I handed out 25 years ago is exactly the same as the one we hand out today, with the exception that we've added now genetically modified foods.
And just to be clear, that you're making sure you monitor and do not allow genetically modified foods. And that was my next question to you, is that for me, my industry has changed, as I started to allude to, and I'll talk a little bit more about. My industry started to change in the concept that I have for my club. I don't think that my mission statement has changed for what I want to do. I mean, when I remember my first tagline was quality results achieved on a personal and supervised basis. And I think that still is the crux of what we do and a lot of what you do. But here's a quick question for you. Do you think that there's a greater urgency, or there was as great an urgency when you started your business in the trails, to monitoring and augmenting the food supply like you do now with your little grocery store and your deli and things of that nature, as there was years ago when you started? Because the quality of the food has progressively gotten worse for people over the years.
There's no question, with literally the thousands of customers that I've made a commitment to meeting personally. Everyone that's listening to this show knows that things, and I don't want to focus on the negative, but everyone that's listening knows that cancer now, for example, has touched every single American family. That the leading cause of death in children, prepubescent children, is not car accidents, it's brain tumors. We now have a new disease called Alzheimer's, which didn't exist in 1990 when we were active, first opened the doors. And then let's talk about autoimmune diseases like lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, which existed, all of it, before 1990. But when you're asking your question, what have I seen? I've seen an incredible increase on these levels. And in my heart of hearts, it all goes back to love, laugh, and lift. Laugh, understanding that when you're making new food choices, you're going to have some setbacks, and you don't want to be a health Nazi, but the love yourself enough that when you think about the food that you're getting in some of these big box stores, when you're getting sodas with high fructose corn syrup, which didn't exist, at least not at the level as it is now, 25, 30 years ago. The new artificial sweeteners, the issues involving foods when you can get a shopping cart of whatever, the cereals that are just made, that are all sugar cereals, for $5.99. You need to understand that you get what you pay for. And you need to love yourself enough to know if it doesn't make you feel good after you eat it, then you need to think about that.
Well, here's so much of what's going on today, and you talked about loving your body and that, and here's the aspect, is that we love our bodies, but we don't love them enough that we can do the research a lot of times and be passionate about these things to research. I see in my industry, I see us getting more frantic with the choices we make in exercise. Over the last 3 years, we've seen the rise of Insanity and PX90 and CrossFit and boot camps. And
let's not even talk about the bodybuilding supplements. That's a whole nother issue that we need.
And what happens is these people allow their egos to get involved, that they've got to take on this illicit challenge of doing these things. Well, here's what it's given rise to. Arthur Jones, my mentor, or one of my mentors, said one time that Ken Cooper wasn't the father of aerobic exercise. He was the father of sports science and joint replacement therapy in this country.
Wow, I'd like to have met him.
People take offense to that because we for so long have lauded what aerobic exercise and being a commando to that. You know, the guys that I train that are triathletes, so you know, you certainly got to admire their commitment to this good habit of exercise. But if they don't support it with good nutrition and they don't exercise wisely and they don't get rest, the body begins to change in a very dramatic negative fashion. And something that was good for you now becomes bad for you. And we see this, and we see now a whole new field of law coming up, which is the liability law related to things like these CrossFit exercises and these PX90s and stuff. And then there's the reasonable part of it that says, hey, listen, can I spend twice a day, 90 minutes a day doing exercise? And our thought process is, hey, why would you do that? Why would you do that? You don't have to. So let's talk about the first theme, which is love. You know, loving your body. And why would you love your body? Because I think everybody loves being healthy. I think everybody loves having energy. I think everybody loves looking great. They love staying young. They love staying lean. They love having optimal metabolism where, you know what, if I go out and I have a pizza, which maybe
right, you don't feel guilty, right?
I don't gain 5 pounds, right?
Right.
And having endurance to do the things every day, to be able to sleep restfully. And you know, I remember one time when I came to you, you asked the question of my partner and I. You said, so how's the sex part of your life? And you know, we just looked at each other and smiled back at you, you know, kind of thing, and gave you the answer. Why?
Right.
Because we make good choices eating, and we work out, and we stay diligent to those things. And so all these things are reasons to love your body, and that's why we've got together. Because what we do synergistically together, our 1 + 1 does not equal 2. Our 1 + 1 equals 3, 4, and 5, because it elevates what people can do and feel like and be productive in society with.
Absolutely. You know, and that goes for our kids, and it goes for our parents.
Now, the things, Mitch, we shouldn't love about what's going on is we see, as you mentioned off the air before we start, the rise in ADD, ADHD, the rise in kids who are autistic.
When I raised my two boys, there was no ADD, ADHD. There was no Ritalin. There was no Strattera.
The rise in autoimmune diseases for people, the rise in cancer, the rise in heart disease. All these have come from inflammation, which we're going to get into talking. But I want to talk about a concept that I just introduced to you before we started this show, the concept of big. And you know, when I remember when I started my business, to give you an idea of how the business has changed. When I started my business, you walked in the door, I handed you the book, The Nautilus Diet. It told you what to eat. It told you how to cook it. It gave you a shopping list. And you showed up 3 times a week and you exercised, right? And we basically always had believed you could be in and out the door in 20 to 24 minutes, and that would be sufficient and change your body. Great success. What went on in that 800 square foot room that I started in led to the 11,500 square foot building that I have today, because it got results. And your thing about science and performance is
right. It's love, laugh, and lift, but it's science driven and performance delivered. I mean, and that again, the same. We started with a little 1,000 square foot store for those listening at the trails, over where the Talbots is now. And now we've got a 10,000 square foot store dedicated to the what we're discussing here today. You're right.
So as I look at the aging population of our country, and I look at the lifestyle habits, the choices, and you know, when you and I started, people didn't eat out as much. Okay, people
Right.
weren't on the run. Stress wasn't there because, you know, I tease. You know, in the old days, it was like if Dave called me and he said, "Hey, listen, did you send me that money I needed, or that bill I needed, or that information I needed?" I would go, "Oh yeah, I put it in the mail, Dave. I don't understand why it didn't get to you." And I would run down to the post office and I put it in the mail right then, right?
Right.
Okay. Then in the 80s came the evolution of when that came around, you said, he'd call and you'd say, "Oh, well, I'll fax it over to you." So now we got a little more stress in our life because there's a little more demand, because if I hadn't finished it and done it, I had to finish it and fax it. Now think about the instantaneousness of society between Instagram, texting, faxing,
and the internet has changed
email,
everything.
all
The internet
this.
has changed.
We can literally know what's going on. Well, that puts stress on our body. It puts a demand. It puts an expectation to people. There's nothing you can't find. There's so much misinformation. And I think that's another key thing that we should talk about in this.
That's why brick and mortar institutions, which is what we are invaluable, because it's almost like information stress. There's so much information, and what you want is a mentor, somebody that you can trust, that has been doing it. And I guess the ultimate compliment is that if you've survived for 2.5 decades, you're doing something right. And that's certainly true in your field. And I can only say that people have that personal relationship to go, like with Carl Tutero, who was our first guest. And I met Carl, 22 years ago. He's coming to get that validation of what is phony baloney and what's really science fact that is going to be performance delivered. And both of us play that role.
Right.
2 different fields, critical. That's why we're partners.
Because we work on peer-reviewed research in science, and we
not junk science. The junk science that's out there is scary.
Yeah. So now one of the first programs after the Nautilus diet that I put together was a program called BIG. And BIG was a program that used a guy named Chris Lund to photograph all these bodybuilders to create this expectation of these huge, ripped athletes.
I think Arnold. That was the peak of the Arnold Schwarzenegger era.
So
Mr. Olympia.
We showed that program to kids who wanted to play high school football and college football, and maybe had dreams of going to the pros. And what we did with them is we worked from the standpoint of building large muscles. Today, the concept of BIG has changed to optimal health. And here's the concept of BIG as we at Love Whole Foods and Body's Personalized Fitness represent it. BIG is the brain, the immune system, and the gut. And you might see that that's something that you would talk about in your business, but why would a fitness center ever talk about it? Well, here's what happened. I was posed with a question that says, can stress really kill me? So now we introduce the second concept of our philosophy, which is laugh. Because you said it best. We don't want to react to stress. We want to control stress. And we have to understand that stress is positive and stress is negative.
We don't want to fight aging. We want to be in control of aging. You fight it, then you put up that negative energy. We want to let it flow, just like Eric Clapton said. Nobody did it better. But you're right, and the women get it. They want to be in control. Menopause is a process, and you're either in the driver's seat or you're a victim of whatever the symptoms are. But same with your exercise program. It's exactly the same.
Well, let's step back from menopause and talk about metabolism. You use the word victim.
25 pounds is the average weight that a menopausal Northern European genetic-based female puts on, is 20 to 25 pounds, even more in some cases, depending on how much stress.
Right.
But yes.
And let's step back. That word victim, okay, victim of your metabolism, victim of menopause. We are the creators of our metabolism, and therefore we can be creators of our health as we move through the menopause. So, and it happens to men too. Let's not fool ourselves. I think women are more motivated to do the healthy things because they see it more vividly, because I think the androstenedione changes and things of that nature for men is very subtle to us. We're seeing it more and more manifested in what you call...
Except Mark McGuire put it on the roadmap.
Yeah.
And he didn't get censored because androstenedione is a natural male hormone. Right. I won't go into what happened with it, but yes, that was a breakthrough.
Right. So what we're seeing with what you call the Harley guts, why are so many men walking around with these big pot guts, and women are starting to get them too as we go? Well, let's come back to inflammation.
Right. Dr. Jay Mead, who's an endocrinologist in California, and the one that we use for our bioidentical saliva hormone testing, which again we've been doing for 15 years. Mead calls that gut an estrogen belly in the male. It's an estrogen belly, reminding that men go through menopause basically at about the same time that their female companions go through.
And then one of the most important things that I've done is I've added the components. I don't want to leave laugh and go to lift yet. So I want to back off a minute, and I want to talk about stress because that question was posed to me, and that's when I came back and said the health of the brain is very important, and how we nourish and how we strength train and how we aerobically train for the brain and building the immune system. But a couple years ago when I had my presentation someone gave me called Shock and Awe. And, one of the first things that hit me was, I like dairy products. I think dairy products are good. We concern ourselves with the phlegm and that dairy products cause. But that aspect of that is not because of what milk does to you. It's the aspect of what is in the milk and how
it's processed.
And how they've been fed, how the cattle have been fed. Cattle weren't intended to eat grain. They were intended to eat grass. And grass is one of the most nutritious things from a probiotic standpoint too. And that's why
it's not even probiotic. Grasses are the most nutrient-dense food source on the planet.
Right.
Period.
But also, don't we get a lot of our biosphere from the soil?
Right. But then you get and then on top of it, the cream on the cream is the beneficial bacteria that's from the soil. That's right.
Now what you mentioned that people may have glossed over, may have said, what is he talking about? Two brains. Let's talk about the gut. Let's talk a little bit about this biosphere and health of the gut that's so important, and why so many people, maybe erroneously in many cases, are going to the store and they're buying. I saw Aaron Andrews on the TV one day advertising a probiotic mixture, okay? That's not, I also believe another thing, that no one single product, technique, exercise, device, or supplement.
Let's go back to the science. There, I won't mention Jamie's last name, but she's promoting this mass market probiotic, which she shamelessly will promote. She also was a NutraSweet spokeswoman. She'll stump anything if they give her the money. I won't mention her last name, but let's go back to the science. There are hundreds and hundreds of bacteria in our environment. But the science is the one that hones in, for example, the bifidum bacteria that women deliver to babies as the first step of their immune system. Acidophilus, which, by the way, when we opened 25 years ago, we were the first to offer science-driven information on which strains were effective. E. coli. Oh, everybody out there is listening. Oh, E. coli, that rangy guy is crazy. We know that E. coli causes food contamination. Well, there are different strains of E. coli. There's a very beneficial one that actually keeps the dangerous one in check. But you need the science. And when you look at this stuff in the mass market, they'll take a smidgen and then they'll run with it because it's cheap. Not that it's beneficial, it's just that it's cheap because Jamie's got to get paid.
Well, and back to that, it seems like the marketing of the nutrition world seems to be like the marketing of the fitness world. But I think there's so many more options in the nutrition world. They find a study that says calcium's good for you, and then they start pounding calcium with all these benefits, and all of a sudden you see the one-a-day vitamin brand with calcium. Then you'll see it for the senior market, because seniors, we find out through studies like the Landmark study that seniors benefit from nutritional supplementation, and now all of a sudden they have their gold formula. And you see this now with probiotics. But coming back to the health of the gut is more than just the probiotics. It's the food we eat from a digestive standpoint. Look at the people who have stomach
which
problems.
We discussed, and you and I coming from the backgrounds that we come from, and let's go back to my Greek exposure to health food. My first exposure was in Detroit in the Greek community. Half of the food that's in the Greek, the Greek foods are prebiotics. Those incredible dishes like spanakopita, if it's prepared properly, it is basically health food.
Right.
Eggplant is it's a superfood, even though people may not like it. I could go down, but let's look at what's hot in the market right now. It's Greek yogurt. Right. Well, I can remember eating Greek yogurt, I hate to say this, 60 years ago.
Yep.
and thinking, wow,
The
that's
little
really...
Yaya, the little Yaya next door had brought her culture
Right.
of
Yeah, Dannon hadn't even been created yet.
but she brought her little culture from Greece of the bacteria.
Yep.
She would put it into the milk after she boiled the milk,
Yep,
right?
yep.
And let it sit overnight and
Yep.
ferment, right?
Yep.
So, but look at what society does. You know, when I go to buy, if I go to buy Greek yogurt at Publix or wherever I go to shop now today in the mass market.
Devil's in the details. Look at the excipients. Look at the added ingredients.
But wait a minute. Look at what I cannot find Greek yogurt made from real milk. Everything is 0% fat. So there's our society again.
All right. Oh yeah, eliminating the fat. Right, because the mass media has got this obsession with fat, as does the general culture, and they go hand in hand. As you know, and you deal with it every day like I do, breaking this obsession on fat or even making fat bad is one of the major things that we do.
We villainize it. And
Right.
you need that good fat for the gut, for the brain,
For the
and
brain.
immune system.
Right.
'Cause
Let's
we
just
don't-
look at Alzheimer's. The brain takes 25 to 30% of all the fat content in the food that you eat because the brain runs on cholesterol.
Yeah.
And you only get cholesterol from the animal kingdom. You don't get cholesterol from the vegetable kingdom. And which again is why we're a whole food store. It's all about balance. But that fat is essential for what the brain runs on. Well, in this last 25 years where we've been obsessed in getting, as you remember, when, eggs were bad, butter was bad, and we expunged the fat from the diet, what happened? Well, if for anybody out there listening about Alzheimer's, I have news for you. It did not exist before 1985. And anybody out there that wants to make sure that they don't get this scourge, do your homework. But don't go to the websites that are obsessed with this myth that fat is bad for you.
Right.
It's essential.
Well,
it's about balance and the right, and by
and
the
let me
way,
tell
the
you,
right fats.
Look at the chemistry. Look at not nature. Look at the chemistry behind low fat and artificial sweeteners. It's all about mimicking and mirroring that product that naturally occurs in nature to go into the body. Okay, so we create margarine to try and get this thing. We create I think this
Right, which is basically, for everybody out there, margarine is a trans fat. Even Mayor Bloomberg was smart enough to get rid of that. And now you don't hear anybody, you don't see any shed spread commercials on television anymore. The marketplace actually has gotten savvy enough. Nobody eats that stuff.
Yeah, but here's the thing is, you people that come to me and we want to build your metabolism through your exercise program, through doing our burst training and our aerobic exercise, and you want to lose that gut and you want to get healthier, the first thing I have to break is two things. Number one, not to deprive yourself of calories, but to eat. Number two,
The right calories.
right. Number two is this obsession with no sugar, no fat, no, the sugar substitutes, because we want that sweetness. I'd rather have regular honey or regular good something natural
Or
sugar.
agave, which is
Right.
derivative from cactus, which has a survival gene structure and rivaling aloe. They're in the same group, by the way, but agave is great as a sweetener.
Rather than putting in sucralose, aspartame, which are all neurotoxins.
The aspartic acid, aspartame, which is in the trade name is NutraSweet, Equal, there's a ton of trade names, is the single most complained food ingredient in the food supply. And you would say, well, what's the complaint? It causes migraine headaches. Why does it do that? Because it's well established. Dr. James Baylock, who wrote a book called NutraSweet, The Taste That Kills. By the way, Blaylock is the head of neurology at the Baylor University. Made it clear that NutraSweet kills brain cells. So it's that perfect storm: no fat, and then doing sugar substitute that has been a contributing factor to this the not just Alzheimer's, but I'm convinced Parkinson's, any neurologic maelstrom that we're, and there's another area I would say go back to these artificial sweeteners.
Well, the whole thing that we're gonna talk to when we talk about lifting and that is that we get to the point of you need to stimulate the body's response hormonally, the adrenals and the thyroid and all that. We have although they're not tested on drugs, 95% of women over 4 have thyroid irregularity because of the diets they've been on.
Number one hormone prescribed in America,
right.
levothyroxine.
And the thing about it is we don't need to take that. We don't need, because all we're doing when we take those hormones, in many cases, is masking what's going on. We say, oh, the blood tests look good, we got a level, but what we've really done is we've masked what's truly going on. But going back to the artificial sweeteners actually inhibit the hypothalamus, which is sort of the control center between the brain and all these hormones. It inhibits the hypothalamus from being able to function. So now what happens is, and ironically, one exercise for women should be a neck extension exercise. Why? Because it keeps proper alignment, so you don't create from stress in your body a structural misalignment that stops the hypothalamus from communicating to the thyroid, the pituitary, and all the other
and
glands.
The adrenal glands.
And the adrenals.
Right, the adrenal cortex.
So let's go back and talk about laughing for a minute, because I want people to understand that stress causes inflammation. Inflammation is the root of your high blood pressure, your gout. All these things are coming from the inflammation process.
Any neurological disease. Starting with a simple headache.
Your arthritis,
any itis. Just the viewers or the listeners out there, just remember bronchitis, arthritis, neuritis, which is involved in so many of the neurological things that we just touched on. That it is critical that we understand what are the triggers and fill in. We talked about it before. For those listening and have problems with gluten, well, why? What is gluten? Well, it's a protein, just like milk protein. Well, if you don't have lactase to be able to digest the milk protein, you get joint pain. You get jointitis. Well, gluten is a protein again. And it causes inflammation because we can't digest it.
And let's go back to the root of inflammation. We have an immune system, and that's where the immune system health comes into play in this big acronym that we have.
And the immune system is an interlocking network of the hypothalamus then interlocking with the thyroid gland, the thymus gland, the adrenal glands.
But let's take it down to the very root. I cut or scratch my finger today. I'm going to get a little redness around that site because my immune system is going to react, and it's going to send these little cytokines that are sort of like the ninjas to battle the infection to that site. And I'll get a little redness around it and that. All right, and that's how the immune system is supposed to work. But imagine this. When we smoke, when we take too much sugar in, when we get the gluten in, when we get these things that are foreign to the body in our bodies, we now are, that's a systemic microtrauma to the body. Overtraining is a microtrauma to the body because it doesn't allow the body to
the body
rest.
just looks at it as more stress. The weekend warrior that thinks they can do a weekend's worth of exercise on Saturday and Sunday is setting up a cycle of inflammation.
So now what happens is these cytokines are produced. The immune system doesn't have the wisdom, if that's the right word, doesn't have the wisdom to say, well, gee, they're self-inflicting.
It just it reacts to chemical triggers.
That's right. We don't say, oh, gee, there's an infection, let's go. So now this whole stress situation that we get in, I mean, stress is nothing more than an extension of the fight or flight process.
Right.
And so now we build our case for our lift. Because here's what happens. Here's the 4-step process of the fight or flight process, which has 2 parts of it. It has the sympathetic and the parasympathetic pathways that are involved in it. Mm-hmm. We don't control what happens, but if someone comes up behind you and grabs you from behind at work, your body goes to the first phase, which is freeze. It literally becomes stone. Your muscles become hard. Your senses become very acute, and your vision gets sharper. And you assess
and narrows. That's correct.
You assess what's going on. Am I in danger? Now, if you pass that first phase, your body says, "Oh, it's just Tasso grabbing me from behind," or it's just my friend startling, or it was just something fell off the shelf and made a crash. Your body then relaxes. If there's still a stimulus there, though, it praises that there is a danger. The next step is what we call flight. What happens during flight? The body dumps blood sugar into the body. Okay, it begins to create the ability to burn that blood sugar very quickly. It dumps fat in as blood sugar. The heart races. We get our blood thinning a bit, and we're ready and prepared to run for our lives. Okay,
that's correct.
Now, if there's still aggravation, now in modern society we call it aggravation. It's that co-worker. Okay, they push you to the next step, which you don't consciously control. This is a parasympathetic system going on in your body.
Right.
You go to fight. Now all of a sudden the agitation starts. Your body's membranes and cell membranes, they become more permeable to let more nutrition go out. Because why? The mitochondria, they hype up their activity and produce more ATP, because now the muscles need to be able to function. And that's where we hear the stories of mothers lifting cars off their children, right? Because they have superhuman strength.
Super energy. They energize the
That's
cell
right.
structure.
The adrenals go bat out of hell towards being functional, right?
Correct.
Now, where do we live in most societies? We take that agitation, we take that aggravation, and we go back to our desk, or we go in. We have the road rage in our car, and this buildup. Now we have our body running on high octane, which is not good for the body. It's tearing the body down, because what we haven't had is the final phase of the fight or flight response, which is fright, where now we do battle. We physically have got into a battle. Now the components of that battle now deplenish all this high octane stuff that's come out. And now when we deplenish that, the body has to recover. So now you have a special class of hormones to heal the body called catecholamines that dump. And the mitochondrial walls become stronger. They become more efficient. The membranes of the cell wall become more efficient. They cleanse the receptor sites so that the hormone sensitivity of our body is better. We get better digestion because we dump all the bad bacteria. All these things are occurring. And what's you say, well, I've never heard of that fright phase. Well, you know, if you ever watch the MMA or you watch a boxing match or you watch these athletes compete, you say, how on God's green earth did that guy be alive tomorrow? It's this step of the process. Well, for us in modern day, it's intense, vigorous exercise, which puts us into the fright stage and allows this healing process to occur that makes the body work and function better and actually get stronger. Not only stronger physically, muscles, but the brain, the intestines, the guts, the immune system be strengthened. Our mitochondria.
If you don't make that transition on the gut side, you end up constipated, which obviously is another problem.
That's right. Now, where do you come into it? Because in order for that body to heal and to have the best hormones, I got to have the best food. Thus, our three-step process of attention to lean body tissue. Number 2, moderate aerobic exercise. And number 3, good nutrition.
And you know that ATP comes from the liver.
That's correct.
And so if the liver is full of what I call rust, just oxidative residue of every pharmaceutical drug, all the crispy, I shouldn't mention, all the mystery donuts full of trans fats, when you're digging down deep in to get that ATP, the store's closed. Right. Period.
Well, listen,
alcohol is another major one. I mean, the number one abused drug in America, I don't care what anybody says, it's alcohol.
Well, we've got alcohol. We've got fried foods.
Sugars.
We've got the sugars
that aren't real sugars.
Yeah, that's right. We've got and again, it's an insult to the American population in public that they will run a commercial on TV that says high fructose corn syrup, and they go, duh, corn. Right?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
It's an insult to the American population because, number one, we know 2 issues that are going on. Number one is a supercharged sugar that rivals alcohol.
Alcohol, absolutely.
Number 2 is genetic modification coming in. We don't know what's going on. We don't know what's going on in the genes of these foods that we're eating when they're genetically modified.
Right.
We don't know what's going to happen as we consume those foods because we think, we see so much of lactose intolerance coming now to this society, but it's because the
But
milk.
corn intolerance is right up there.
But the milk has been altered for us. We don't have a beta 1 casein anymore, or a beta 2 casein. We have a beta 1 casein, and casein protein used to be a great milk protein. Used to be a great protein for us. Now we can't rely on it from that standpoint, and this is why nutrition comes into it so much. And now comes the lift phase, because the lift phase is what takes us.
Well, before we go there, I just wanted to mention everything that you just said is interesting. I wrote an article called "Weaponize Your Immune System," and anyone that's listening can go to my website at lovewholefoods.com and download it. It's free. The other one that I just wanted to mention is that we talked about science. Dr. Guy Devin, PhD, did one of the best continuing ed courses Love Whole Foods has ever done. We had a packed store on an evening presentation called Breaking the Cycle of Inflammation. And anybody that wants to ask for it, cytokines, cortisol production, these things, rather than become burdened with it, just come on in and I'll give them the science. That's the science.
And let's go back to cortisol production. Again, back to our mantra a little bit earlier about what was going on in society with what was going on with how they market. We hear about cortisol years ago. Then all of a sudden, what did we see? We saw a rash and a run on the market of cortisol products, which people went out and bought, okay, so they could lose their belly fat.
Right.
Well, we're telling you how to lose the belly fat now.
Right. It's not a supplement. You're not going to take a supplement.
It is a plan. The plan is to improve the brain, improve the immune system, and to get the gut in shape so that when you exercise, okay, you can
lift. Now we're at the lift.
We're at the lift.
Now we're at the lift, the most critical element in this triangle.
And what we want to do in the lift is we want to overload the body. People forget that the body is very adaptable. Now, you have to have, there's another thing that we should talk about is habitual stress. Every day we're under, and there was an interesting study I just read out of England, Mitch, and it said if you take a 65-year-old person and they retire, and they don't make, and they just retire. They say, I'm done, I've done my time, now it's time to enjoy life. At 80 years old, they will have lost 50% of their what's the word I want to say? Their faculties from the standpoint of thought process and that, okay? Mm-hmm. If you take a person that works
mental acuity,
thank you.
They've had a loss of 50%, really.
Right. If you take a person,
I knew it was bad. I didn't know it was that bad.
If you take a person and you work them till they're 70, and every day they have that habitual stress of making decisions and taxing their body, they never see a loss in their acuity skills. They don't see a drop down as we do. The second key to it is this, is that you have to have a decision-making process tied to a passion, tied to a stressor that you control with the passion that you have.
That you're in control of, as opposed to being a victim, let's say, in an abusive relationship where every day is a nightmare. And
one of my workout partners is 62 or 63 years old, and he's off on this big motorcycle trip he does a couple times a year. And the thing about it is that is his hobby, that is his passion, and that's where he makes his decisions, because he sits at his computer and he plots it out. He says, I want to go here, I want to do this, and he tracks this, and he's involved in the decision-making process. So he keeps his mental faculties engaged with a passion. And all of us have to be reminded of this. And part of the lifting phase is more than just what we think lift. I think strength training is the core of any great fitness program. It's not as sexy or as glamorous as doing 100 squat thrusts through a parking lot or climbing up
your
on
body
ropes.
weight with a free weight.
But strength training is stimulus to the body that changes all these hormonal things that we've talked about. They're all involved in the process, and we see that chemistry come together. That when we have the good base of rest, we have a stimulus, we have rest, we have nutrition, nourishment, recovery. When we have that process going on, the body is going to respond. So a lot of times I take athletes and I say, listen, you're working, you're doing too much. We need to back off. And they're amazed that all of a sudden their performance improves dramatically. Why? Because they're no longer doing 5 and 6 days a week. Now, some people have it in their mind, more is better. More is not always better. I believe that today, my history is that in 1976, when I trained for the Olympic trials, I trained 6 days a week, 4 hours a day to get ready for that. The only reason I'm confident that I survived that today, if I in fact did survive it, because I have knee and hip issues as a result of those training methods, the only reason I survived that was because of my youth and because of the balance from, having my mom's good food. And
I was going to say, you had a really good support system that, the fellow in my neighborhood, Jimmy Stimmitz, who I remember having breakfast with my first sleepover. Jimmy took his Frosted Flakes and he hydrated it with Pepsi. How do we survive that? I don't know. I guess we had mothers that said, I don't care what Jimmy's mother's doing, but we're not doing that.
Right. So we look at this and we look at the lift part of it. And it's so important to put that stressor under a controlled way on the body. And I want to encourage you, if you're working at a fitness center and you've been working with the same weight over and over again, the same exercise, you need to look at that. I had a great discussion a couple of weeks ago with a friend of mine who was working out at home. They said, my body's just not changing anymore. And I said, well, you're doing the same thing. You're using the same weight, and your body needs to adapt. And to adapt, it needs good nutrition. Well, she has good nutrition. So she has good nutrition. So you mentioned earlier in the show, what you need to be successful in this endeavor of good health is mentors, and we want to provide that mentorship. Yep. So let's, again, as we leave the show today with about 4.5, 5 minutes left in it, let's tell people about Love Whole Foods, where they can get you, how they can get in touch with you, because we want to make sure that people understand what our mission is to dramatically and positively improve people's quality of life. And that's what it's all about for us. That's why we've come together. We have a good friend, Dr. Fawn, who's involved with us. All this is...
Just as Love Whole Foods has partnered with a number of good physicians, this is not a doctor bashing. What we're discussing, the medical schools are now beginning to catch up and teach.
Yeah.
They teach probiotics now, where when I was at the University of Michigan, that would have been looked at as being bizarre,
right,
or hippie stuff.
Yeah, and the thing about it is, and I'm glad you mentioned it, we are the right arm. We can. I think you and I, not being egotistic, we consider ourselves the right arm of the physicians. Because what do physicians do?
Right.
They know when they need to intercede with the things they need to intercede with. The thing is, when that intercession is a medication, we don't want people to stay on that medication because most of them have side effects. If you're taking more than 3 medications, you have a 75% chance that they're counterindicative to one another.
Right.
So this is the downfall of that practice of medicine, which has been hijacked by the pharmaceuticals. Never do we say the physicians are bad, they don't know what they're talking about. Physicians are really smart people, and for the most part I've seen, they're really caring people. And what we want to be, I want to be the physician's best friend. I want to walk into a party and have a physician go put his arm around me and say, man, you did a great job with my patient, helping them get back to optimal health.
Right.
Because his practice is about stopping disease. Ours is about reversing that disease continuum and moving back to good health, getting rid of that syrupy blood that causes high viscosity and high blood pressure because there's too much sugar in it and there's too much stress in the body and there's not good nutrition.
Or the hardening of the arteries, arteriosclerosis. And
so how to get hold of Love Whole Foods, please, because we only got about 3 minutes left.
Well, just first and foremost, both of us have we've discussed our families, and we are not a corporation. It's a family-run business. The 2 locations are in Ormond Beach on Williamson Boulevard, right across from the post office, just south of Granada Boulevard. And again, the number there is 677-5236. We've got a complete deli. Our fruits and vegetables are second to none. We have the largest selection of organic fruits and vegetables in Volusia, Flagler County.
And I might add that if you go to your fruit and vegetables, they are not significantly more expensive than if you go across the street to Publix or Walmart.
Our customers have allowed us to now buy, and now that we have the second store, we're doing volume buying for both stores. They're both over 10,000 square feet. And so we've been able to bring fruits and vegetables in the realm, maybe a few pennies more, but in many cases even cheaper than conventional, but we don't wrap them in plastic ever. We also don't use any pesticide services like Massey. We control the critters that are a part of the universe the old-fashioned way. That's another topic we need to talk about.
Okay.
We don't spray pesticides in an environment with organic fruits and vegetables. That's an oxymoron.
Right.
That's fundamental. That's why people that have autoimmune diseases can come into my store where they can't even go into a mass market store for that very reason. The second location is down right at I-95 and exit 256. We're just west of I-95 on 1633 Taylor Road. And again, we've got a complete deli. Everything in our deli we don't have a delivery from another mass market area for the food. Everything in the deli comes from the store, and I emphasize that. And then again, the same. We've got range-fed beef. We've got lunch meats that don't have any nitrates or sulfites. We don't sell any phony sugars. We've got stevia, which we need to talk about to deal with another crisis now that's come up right up there with Alzheimer's, which is diabetes. We'll talk about that in a future one.
Phone number there.
And the phone number is 767-6543, Tasso.
All right, and Bodez by Tasso Company, located at 1140 West Granada. It's where we start your fitness level where you're at today. We guide you, as Mitch used the word, we mentor you to good health. It does take patience. It's not a quick fix. It's not an inexpensive $10 a month club, but on an average of $2 a day is what you'll invest for great service, a great game plan, and success in the future to your health. 672-6464. This has been a special Lifestyle Academy presentation of Fitness Friday. The theme today was Love, Laugh, and Lift. Remember, we have the new big in your life, the healthy brain, healthy immune system, and healthy gut. And finally, the 3 steps of our process at Bodez by Tasso Company to turn your body around. Attention to your lean body, muscle, and tissue, which adds to your metabolism. Number 2 is a moderate amount of aerobic exercise. And number 3, good nutrition through our friends at Love Whole Foods. God bless. Have a great day. And join us again every Friday on WNDB with Fitness Friday.